Loud. And as you can see that the live transcript is on, we are expected to have the live transcript on. If you don't want it, you can just toggle at the CC closed captioning at the bottom of your screen and you can turn it off. It does the best interpretation, but not perfect. So just keep that in mind. And without much further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my friend Cynthia, who will say a few words before Razan's presentation. And enjoy this class.
All right. Good afternoon. Okay, today we're going to have Razan Sahuri, who works at the University of Maryland Extension. She is Howard County's Maryland SNAP nutrition educator. She holds a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics and a master's degree in public health. So she knows what she's talking about. Through her work with UME, Razan partners with Howard County Public School System, Head Start Centers, and the Howard County Food Bank to deliver nutrition education to students, parents, and teachers. These collaborations also involve leveraging resources between SNAP Ed and local community agencies to facilitate greater access and availability of healthy food options and influence the adoption of policy systems and physical environment changes related to a healthier lifestyle. So here she comes.
All right, so thank you for having me. Let me start sharing my screen. All right, can you see this?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. As Piali and Cynthia mentioned, this is a series with the library. Every month we highlight one recipe, one featured ingredient. Today's star is our canned tomatoes. So let me walk you quickly through what we're going to talk about. First, I'm going to briefly talk about the benefits of tomatoes and then the different types of tomatoes. After that, I'm going to discuss with you 5 different ways to use canned tomatoes. And finally, I'm going to demonstrate 3 recipes and then open it up for Q&As. If you have any questions anytime, please put them in the chat. And once we stop, or when I'm doing the food prep, they can ask me the questions and hopefully I will answer them. So let's start with the health benefits of tomatoes. Tomatoes are great. They're a great source of vitamins and minerals, especially vitamin C, vitamin E, and potassium. They're great for the immune system. They're an amazing source of fiber, and their juiciness is because they're a source of water. So all in all, they're an amazing fruit/vegetable, and they're a great source of antioxidants such as beta carotene and lycopene. And lycopene is known to help fight cancers, and it's very good to promote a healthy body. And the great thing about lycopene, usually its potency increases when tomatoes are cooked. And usually when we can tomatoes, we have to cook them in order to can them. All right, so types of canned tomatoes. Usually what happens is when we go to the grocery store, we find so many different brands, and then we find so many different types of canned tomatoes. So some of those canned tomatoes are whole tomatoes. So they're just the tomato as is canned. And this is the kind of tomato that suits whatever recipe. So you can keep it as is, you can blend it, you can chop it, you can dice it. So you can do whatever you want with it because it's whole, just like regular tomato. The other kind is diced tomatoes. So diced tomatoes are easy to use since it's, the work is already done. All you have to do is just open it, dump it, and in your recipe and you're done. Crushed tomatoes are another example, and crushed tomatoes in terms of consistency is between diced and pureed. So it's great for sauces, for soups, but it still adds that texture that is not super silky, but still it's not as chunky as the crushed. And then pureed tomatoes, from their name, it's they're more smooth, they're thicker. So if you're looking for a recipe that you'd want some body to it, maybe a pureed canned tomato would be the choice for you. And then finally, the one before the last is a tomato sauce. And tomato sauce is basically that cooked canned tomato, but it's blended, it's made more, it's smoother, and then it's pourable. So, if you hold that can, you can pour it, it's complete liquid. It's not the same as pasta sauce. So tomato sauce is not as pasta sauce or pizza sauce. The difference is tomato sauce is just tomatoes, tomato sauce. Pasta sauce is tomato sauce with other seasonings. So with herbs, usually other spices. So you can actually make your own pasta sauce from your tomato sauce. And that's one of the recipes that you will receive at the end of this class today. And then finally, we have the tomato paste. Tomato paste is more of that tomato sauce, but it's cooked down, it's evaporated, it's more concentrate. So, a tablespoon or a small spoon would add that flavor. It also adds thickening. It thickens the whatever you're making, say a stew or a soup. And the great thing about it is you can save the leftovers. You can save the leftovers for all of them. But I don't know if any of you is like me, where you open, you have some tomato paste where you use 1 tablespoon and then you have the rest and you don't know what to do with it. You can definitely keep it in the fridge, but it's better if you remove it from its can, and then you can just, what I personally do is I scoop it, I spoon it, I put separate tablespoons and I put it in the freezer. And then once it's frozen, after a couple of hours, I just put them in a freezer safe bag. And then, whenever you need a tablespoon or a teaspoon, you just take one and you dump it in your recipe. All right. Now let's move to our 5 ways to use canned tomatoes. Usually in these classes, I like to highlight a recipe that works for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and a dessert. Today, because it's tomatoes, we're not going to do the same. So there's a little bit of variation, and you'll see it as we go along. But the first is breakfast and also brunch. You can use canned tomatoes with your eggs. So if you do omelets or a frittata or a quiche, although, with the quiche, you need to be, not do that all the time because of the the heaviness of the crust. Maybe a frittata would be a little lighter, but think of it as regular tomatoes. Whenever you use regular tomatoes, you can use your canned tomatoes for your frittata. And today you're going home with the zucchini and tomato frittata recipe. The second is, I'm calling it lunch, but soup works anytime. If you like it for dinner, as an appetizer for dinner, or for lunch with a sandwich. I wanted to highlight it as a lunch because I feel, if you prep soup ahead of time, you can use it for lunch, when you're working, you don't have to think about it. And when it comes to tomatoes, you can obviously have tomato as the star of that soup, the main ingredient, like a tomato soup, but you can also use it as the base. A tomato base is very versatile. You can play with it the way you like. And today I'm going to share with you 2 recipes, the quick minestrone soup and the squash vegetable soup. And we are going to, I'm going to demonstrate the quick minestrone soup with you because it's quick and I want you to see how quick and easy it is. The third way to use canned tomatoes is in our main courses. And the mains here, I divided them into 2 parts. The first is the liquid based. So, think of something that's saucy, like chilies, stews. So with chili, especially during this time of year where, we want something that's warm, I'm going to actually demonstrate a chili recipe. You will not believe how quick that recipe is. It is done in less than 10 minutes, I promise, and you will see. And then stews, you're going to go home with a lentil stew. It's really nice. And the nice thing about a tomato base, it doesn't have to be lentils, for example. You don't have lentils, you can use beans. You don't have beans, you have leftover chicken, you can use that. It's very versatile. And then the last one is pasta sauce. The nice thing about pasta sauce is, yes, you can buy a ready-made pasta sauce, but usually it's cheaper to make your own. That's one thing. And then you can custom make it the way you like, customize it the way you like. So if your family likes it more spicy, you can add more spice to it, more kick. So depending on what you like to do, you can alter it. And this recipe that you're also going home with, it has vegetables in it. It has spinach. So, you know, if you're trying to sneak more vegetables in your food, that might be a way to do it. For the other mains, the regular mains, first I wanted to mention casseroles. So casseroles are easy, especially, you know, when you're busy. You can, if you have leftover chicken, meat, you can dump it in the casserole with a carb that you have that's already made, like leftover pasta or rice, with with tomatoes, and then maybe add other vegetables and just put it in the oven. If you like to add some crunch to it on top, or maybe a little bit of cheese, so you can custom make it the way you like. It's super easy as well. So you can make it, as I mentioned, in a casserole, or you can just take a regular recipe and add tomatoes to it, just to add, you know, extra vegetables. So with meatloaf, you know, a lot of people use ketchup sometimes. Another way to do it is actually put some tomatoes, some chopped tomatoes, canned tomatoes in the meatloaf itself, and then you can use a tomato paste to glaze it. So it binds from the inside, and then the glaze gives it that nice, lovely, rich color. And you can also add it to something like mac and cheese. You know, if mac and cheese is a staple in your home and you'd like to add more to it, you can add, definitely you can add canned tomatoes. There's a recipe that you'll receive. It's called beefy macaroni and cheese. So it's beef and canned tomatoes. But if you'd rather not have beef, or if you're trying to reduce the amount of beef you use, you can just use other vegetables with it, and that works. And then finally, for a snack, you can use, you know, canned tomatoes for a snack or as an appetizer. I feel salsa works for both. I also enjoy salsa in the summer when, you know, I want something fresh, maybe for dinner with a piece of, you know, grilled chicken or grilled fish, and you can add that salsa next to it or on top of it. It's very easy to make. Yes, you can make it with your fresh tomatoes, but you can also definitely make it with canned tomatoes. You're going to receive two recipes that are completely different. One is a mango salsa. So it has that sweet taste to it. So if you like the sweet and savory, and then the other one, it's just a regular salsa. And that's the one that I'm going to also demonstrate. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we're going to start with the food demos. And if we have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Razan, there is one question. It's asks, sometimes I only find one kind of canned tomatoes in the food bank. Can I use it regardless of the type of canned tomatoes?
That's a very good question. Absolutely. So let's say you're making, you know, you need diced tomatoes for your recipe. You can definitely use crushed. The only thing is, flavor-wise, it's going to be the same, but consistency-wise, it might be a little bit different. So maybe if you have whole tomatoes and you're going to use crushed, you can crush them or dice them. But if you have something that's more liquidy and you want it more structured, just make sure not to add as much. Does that make sense? So for our first recipe, I'm going to show you the quick minestrone soup. It's super easy because it needs some time to get prepped. So let me start with that first. So for this recipe, you know what? Let me show you the ingredients first, because it has a lot of ingredients. So the first thing is we have 1 cup of cooked pasta. And this is great if you have leftover pasta. You can just, you know, make your minestrone soup with it. And then we have 1 16-ounce frozen vegetables. So, you know, if you have a bag, you can put any vegetables you have. If you have leftover vegetables, you'd like to add them, you can. If you have fresh, you can, you know, the sky's the limit. It's super easy. And then 2 cups of broth of low sodium vegetable broth. And that's the same thing if you have, you know, other broth, or even if you don't have broth, you can still use water, and that works. All right, a can of beans for your protein, and you can use any beans. So you can pick and choose if you have preference or whatever you have at home. And then some parsley, chopped parsley. And then some salt, pepper, and of course, our star ingredient, which is the, so this is canned tomatoes, but I left them in their sauce. So depending on the recipe, sometimes you need to drain it because it's extra liquid, but because it's soup, you know, we can definitely have that. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to start my, let me move this and see if you can see it. Okay. So, all right. So in your pot, you just add the vegetables, the frozen vegetables, and you add the broth to it, and you leave it until the vegetables are tender. So you give it a quick. All right. Once that's done, you can add, so let's pretend that it's done. Once it's done, I'm going to add the beans. And you know what? I'm just gonna let it simmer while we do our other recipe. The canned tomatoes. Is there any question, by the way?
I don't think so, not yet.
All right. We have some pepper. Oh, it's over here. I thought the camera's over there. And then some dried Italian herbs, and you can use anything you have. So it does not have to be, you know, dried Italian. If you have rosemary, or if you have basil, or if you have fresh, you know, you can use anything you have. And if you don't have it, you don't have to use it. It just adds just a little bit of extra flavor. And then the pasta, leftover pasta. And I prefer brown pasta for the fiber. Okay. And for a little bit of freshness, the parsley. And you're getting the recipe, so. And you can add more things to it if you like. So I'm just gonna leave it here for a while. And you can use medium heat. All right. So that's the first recipe. That's called the quick minestrone. What do you think? Is it quick? All right. The second recipe is a salsa, and it's super easy as well. So for that recipe, you need a can of diced and drained tomatoes. Right. One small onion chopped, and I like to chop mine finely, but you know, it's up to you if you don't like that, if you prefer it to be more, you know, coarser. Half a green bell pepper, and you can use any bell pepper you have as well. And then half a cup of chopped cilantro. That looks like more than half, but it's half. Okay. And then half a teaspoon of salt. Okay. And then a juice of 1 lime. I did not have lime, so I used lemon. So if you don't have lemon, you know, you can definitely use lemon.
Hey, Razan, there's a question. Can I use fresh tomatoes instead?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So you can definitely use fresh tomato instead of canned, or canned tomatoes instead of fresh. The equation, or if you want to convert 1 can of let's say 14 ounce, roughly 14 and a half ounce, is equivalent to 1 pound of tomatoes, which is 5 to 6 tomatoes. So if you have fresh, you can use that. If you have, you know, if you have canned, you can definitely use that. But for example, for this recipe, I had to drain the sauce. So just make sure you follow the recipe in terms of whether you need to drain it or not, because that would affect the consistency of the recipe. So this salsa, you can serve it with some chips, or even dried, dried bread, or with vegetables, or you can put it with, as a side. But voila, it's done. So what do you think? Was that quick?
I thought so. Yep.
Yes.
All right, so I'm just checking the minestrone soup. Let me show you. So it's done. It would look, we can plate it, but I want to show you how it looks. If you like it more saucy, you can definitely add more sauce to it. And our third and final recipe, which I'd like you to time because it's called 3-can chili. And are you ready for that?
Yep.
All right, 1 can. Oops, sorry. Let me just remove this. 1 can of corn. If you have frozen, you can use frozen, so it doesn't have to be. Okay. 1 can of beans, and you can use any beans you like. Tomatoes, but I wanted to use crushed just for the consistency since this is a chili. And then some chili seasoning. I like to add cumin to it. And we're done.
Wow.
That's it. You just heat it because, you need to heat it so they're warm, because if they're canned, they're already done. And that's it. You can take, your favorite topping and add it to it. That's the nice thing about this chili. You can add anything you like. So let's say you prefer, some people like avocados, or some maybe dried, some chips or dried bread, or some fresh tomatoes or cilantro. You can add that to it. You can also add other ingredients to the chili. That's another great way to, let's say you have leftover chicken, you can add that. Or if you have, let's say other vegetables, you can add it. So it literally takes less than 10 minutes to make. And it's very forgiving. If you'd like it more spicy, you can add more spice to it. If you like it a little bit saltier, you can add a little bit of more salt to it. But that's it. It's done. And this is how it looks. All right. So just to recap, let me stop my sharing. Sorry. We talked about 3 recipes, 2 of which are very similar, the soup and the chili, but I thought, for our weather right now, it works. But you're also going to receive all the other recipes that I mentioned. The first recipe, which is the frittata recipe, it asks for fresh tomatoes. But since, some people now are trying not to go to the grocery store all the time, for example, you can use your canned tomatoes. But for something like a frittata, make sure it's, you drain it first. So you'll get all of those recipes. And I hope you share some of your creations with me. Any questions?
There's one question. Someone
Yes.
is concerned about cleaning stains off of your equipment, like your spatula, etc.
Like my what, sorry?
Like the spatulas, how do you get the tomato stains off of them?
So usually I just use, soap and water. I've never had stains. But sometimes if you feel like you have something that's not, that's giving you a hard time, try a little bit of vinegar. I don't know. Does anybody have a suggestion?
Especially for plastics. That's what gets stained by the tomatoes.
Okay. Anybody has a suggestion?
There's somebody said, Haley says lemon juice can
Lemon
help
juice.
get up.
Yeah, my mom is saying hydrogen peroxide in the background, but I've never tried it, so I don't know. All right.
Any other question for Razan? Oh, no question. Oh, there's a question. Hold on. Okay, Dhara says, put it in sunlight is the best.
Oh,
I think for removing. Wow. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the tip. We'll definitely try that.
Yeah. Well, if there's no other questions, I wanted to mention that we are going to have our next class on this series on March 9th. And here is, I'm trying to paste the link here. We'll see if it works. You can just go ahead and sign up at the link. And the next class, Razan is going to show us recipes. Here, let me find out. Recipes on
canned fish and canned chicken.
Canned chicken and fish. That's
Yeah.
right. So March 9, 2021, canned chicken and fish at the second Tuesday of every month. And April 13th, we have canned beans. May 11th, we have rice. June 8th, we have peanut butter. So there is the link in the chat. If you just want to go ahead and sign up for the next class, we would love to see you. And yeah, we're going to stick around for a little longer if you have any questions, but I am going to stop recording at this point.
And please feel free to email me if you have any questions or you'd like to share.